Please.
Well, thank you, Chairman Murkowski, Ranking Member Cantwell, all of my colleagues for the opportunity to say a few words on this very important issue for our country. Now, many in this room have claimed to be protectors of Alaska's environment, but with all due respect to my colleagues here today, there are 3 people in Congress who care more about Alaska's environment than anyone else in the entire body: Senator Murkowski, Congressman Young, and myself. The fundamental disconnect in the discussion of the 1002 area is that the debate has not kept up with Alaska's high standards, the highest in the world, and I'll talk about that, and advancements in technology. So with all due respect to the ranking member, a lot has changed. A lot has changed. Responsibly developing the 1002 area is truly a win-win-win for our country. It will create jobs, it will help grow the economy, increase energy security for Americans, and very importantly, it will help protect the global environment and strengthen our national security. And it's these last 2 points I'd like to emphasize in my remarks this morning. Madam Chair, as you know, Alaska has the highest environmental standards regarding responsible Arctic resource development of any place in the world. I was in charge of these standards as Alaska's Commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources, and I can tell you, whether it's what we call no-impact exploration or specific requirements related to our incredible species like the polar bear or caribou, or mandating the best available technology, we have a 50-year record of responsible resource development in our state. Let me just give you one example. No-impact exploration. As the Chair noted, on the North Slope of Alaska, we only allow for exploration activities during the winter months. So companies are required to build ice roads across the tundra, ice pads, where they put their equipment and drill rigs. And you can see examples in some of the slides I've provided, and they have to leave before the winter ends. The ice pads and roads literally melt and have zero impact on the tundra. The only thing left is a small capped well, and that's just one example of Alaska's very high mandated standards. As the Chair pointed out, we use these standards very recently in the past 4 years on the coastal plain in the same ecosystem of the 1002 area that's being debated right now with the development of the Point Thompson project. There's a slide that you can take a look at, see how close that is to the 1002 area. There was literally minimal impact or no impact on the environment and wildlife. And the footprint, as you can see from the slides, is very, very small, and it's producing energy right now. Madam Chair, here is the big issue that those in Congress who want to shut down resource development in Alaska never acknowledge. When you disallow investment in Alaska, a place with the highest standards on the environment in the world, you don't end up protecting the global environment. What you do is you end up driving capital and investment to jurisdictions with much less environmental standards, or in some cases, no environmental standards. Countries like Nigeria and Venezuela and Iran and Russia, many of which are also our geopolitical foes. This brings me to my second point. Producing more energy responsibly, oil, natural gas, renewables, and making the United States, again, the world's energy superpower, will dramatically strengthen our national security. As some of you know, I've served in the Marine Corps for 24 years. I've also served as a U.S. Assistant Secretary of State, whose portfolio included energy security issues, global energy security issues, and I've seen how energy can be used as a tool for good, productive diplomacy, but also can be used for troublesome power grabs by our nation's foes. We don't have to import energy when we don't have to import energy from countries that don't like us, or better yet, when we can export American energy to our allies like Japan or Korea, or even to countries like China. This helps our national security and foreign policy. I sit on the Armed Services Committee, and we've heard from military and civilian leaders from our country, Democrats and Republicans, from Secretary Ash Carter to Secretary Mattis, consistently have stated that producing more energy strengthens our national security. And I know my friends Senator King and Senator Hirono have heard these comments consistently on the Armed Services Committee as well. But it's not just American officials who recognize this. The Russians know this as well. Madam Chair, I'd like to submit for the record a recent New York Times article just from a few days ago, October 29th, titled, Russia uses its oil giant Rosneft as a foreign policy tool.
We'll include that as part of the record.
The first sentence of that story reads, Russia is increasingly wielding oil as a geopolitical tool, spreading its influence around the world and challenging the interests of the United States. Let me end with an anecdote of a meeting I was just in last year at the Halifax International Security Forum with Senator McCain. We were meeting with a senior-level Russian dissident, and we asked him at the end of the meeting, what more can we do as a country to push back against the Putin regime? He looked at us and said, the number one thing you can do is produce more American energy. And opening the 1002 area using the highest environmental standards in the world and the most advanced technology will produce more American energy for the betterment of our country. Thank you, Madam Chair.